Emma adjusted the strap of her simple canvas tote as she stepped into the bustling corporate office cafeteria. The room was bright with chatter and the clatter of dishes, filled with well-dressed employees gathered around sleek tables or waiting in line at the barista counter. She carried a modest container of homemade food, nothing flashy, just a neatly packed lunch prepared with care at home. Despite the warm hum of voices, a flutter of nervousness settled in her chest, a quiet unease as she took in the polished faces and designer clothes surrounding her. Heather, the head of human resources, lounged near the entrance to the cafeteria, a sharp-eyed woman who rarely missed a chance to observe the finer details of those around her. Her lipstick, bright and commanding, curled into a slight sneer when she spotted Emma. Nearby colleagues caught Heather's attention, following her gaze toward the woman with the plain lunch. An amused murmur sparked as Heather exchanged meaningful looks, her expression saying loud and clear that Emma didn't quite belong. With an air of practiced condescension, Heather approached, her heels tapping sharply against the polished floor. "Bringing lunch from home, Emma?" she asked loudly, voice tinged with mock surprise. "I don't usually see people packing their meals in a place like this. Is it a special kind of thriftiness?" Emma's fingers tightened around her container, cheeks warming as she glanced around the room. Conversations quieted, and curious eyes settled on her. The air shifted, the cafeteria's easy camaraderie replaced by a charged tension as Heather's words planted the seed of judgment. Emma felt a small pang of discomfort but said nothing. The moment had come, the first quiet battle in a day that promised unexpected challenges. Heather's voice rang louder, slicing through the lunchtime chatter like a sharp blade. "I mean, really, Emma," she said with a sarcastic smile, "in a company like this, we all appreciate the perks, the gourmet food, the fancy coffee, the little luxuries that come with success. You don't have to live like you're still in college, you know." She grabbed a nearby chair and plopped down across from Emma, crossing her arms with mock sympathy. "Why not embrace it? Isn't that why you're here, to be part of this world?" A ripple of laughter trailed behind her words, and a few employees nearby glanced over, smirking, whispering with raised eyebrows. Emma, holding her lunch container tightly on her lap, felt their stares like pricks against her skin. Her heart thudded in her chest, not from fear but embarrassment, that suffocating feeling of standing out for the wrong reasons in a room where everyone's uniforms seemed to be designer labels, expensive cups, and well-practiced confidence. "I prefer homemade meals," Emma said softly, trying to keep her voice steady as she looked at Heather. "It helps me stay focused, and it's healthier." Her words were calm, but the weight of Heather's derision pressed down upon them. Heather arched an eyebrow, lips curling. "Focused, huh? Well, you might want to focus on fitting in a little better." She indicated the container again with a pointed flick of her hand. "You don't want the whole office talking." The laugh that followed was crueler this time, more like a pointed insult. Several people chuckled and exchanged knowing looks. Emma felt her cheeks burn hotter. She avoided eye contact, glancing instead at the tempting display of pastries and an artisanal sandwich behind the glass counter. She could have bought a lunch like anyone else, but the truth was simple: this was her choice, and it felt like a small anchor of normalcy amid the swirling chaos of a corporate life that was often overwhelming. Trying to escape the growing scene, Emma gently stood, clutching her lunch container. "I think I'll eat somewhere quieter today," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Heather's gleam changed. She stood as well, blocking Emma's way with a stubborn stare that dared her to leave. "Oh no, Emma. You're not going anywhere just yet. People here deserve to know who's sitting among them, eating lunch like some outsider." Her eyes twinkled with something sharp, an eagerness to expose, to humiliate. The cafeteria had gone mostly silent. Conversation stalled mid-sentence. The staff's attention was pulled toward the unfolding scene. Some employees nudged neighbors, whispering, their faces a mixture of curiosity, judgment, and unease. Emma's eyes darted to these faces. Some seemed sympathetic, a few looked uncomfortable, but none stepped forward to intervene. Heather took a step closer, lowering her voice to a threatening edge. You can't just quietly disappear with your little container and expect people to not notice. Who are you really, hiding behind that lunchbox? Her words left a chill despite the warmth in the room. Emma swallowed hard, the knot in her throat tightening. The chair she had been about to sit in suddenly felt miles away. The cacophony of judgment was stifling, unrelenting. Her mind raced. She could retreat, flee, hide behind silence. And yet, she felt the weight of the watching eyes, waiting for a crack, a sign of weakness. Heather wasn't done. Sensing her primed audience, she raised her voice again. Doesn't she look odd? Like she's trying too hard, or not hard enough. Maybe she forgot this isn't some small startup where anyone can show up in a sweater and yoga pants. She laughed then, the sound loud and harsh, echoing off the modern cafeteria walls. Several employees now openly smirked, some chuckled, and a few gave hesitant applause, their faces flushed with the thrill of social superiority. Emma felt herself shrinking, the fight draining from her limbs. What did she have to prove here? She was simple, yes. But no one knew the hours she logged, the decisions she made or the weight she carried. This container, this meal, was her choice. Part of herself she clung to amid the corporate swirl. Emma's lips parted, as if to speak, but the words lodged stubbornly inside her throat. She clenched her fists, refusing to break under the pressure, but the tension was unbearable. From the edges of the room, a few whispered questions floated, poking and prodding, testing the boundaries of office etiquette. Just as Emma took a tentative step toward the exit, Heather's voice stopped her again. You're not going anywhere until you tell us why you think you can sit here, eating what looks like leftovers from someone's modest dinner. Heather's glare held the entire cafeteria captive. The sparkling elevator doors behind her reflected the pent-up discomfort radiating from every corner. Emma's breath trembled, her fingers curled tighter around her lunch container. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool air conditioning. She felt as though she were under a microscope, exposed and vulnerable. The weight of humiliation crashed down, and a sharp sting welled in her eyes. Despite the humiliation, Emma held her ground, shoulders straightening imperceptibly. It was a quiet rebellion, a silent refusal to crumble. She felt the room's energy shift, the faint flicker of unease among the watching employees, a crack in Heather's armor that not everyone approved of her bullying. But the moment remained frozen, the cafeteria's chatter stilled, all eyes trained on the small woman standing alone, caught between retreat and defiance. Emma felt the bitter taste of being isolated, the cold burn of judgment. In that charged moment, no one moved. The social force field Heather had wielded seemed absolute, as if Emma's defeat was a foregone conclusion. Yet somewhere beneath the unease, a spark flickered, perhaps a story yet untold, a strength cloaked beneath quiet dignity. What would you do if you were Emma? Facing the sharp gaze of judgment, would you shrink away or stand tall? The question hovered in the air, unanswered, as Heather's triumphant smile lingered, and the cafeteria waited for Emma's next move. Emma took a slow, steadying breath, feeling every eye in the cafeteria drilling into her. For a moment, the silence seemed endless, thick with anticipation, as though the whole room was waiting for her to either falter or respond. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm and quiet but carried a clear strength that commanded attention. My name is Emma Carter. The name hung in the air like a secret suddenly revealed. I'm the CEO of this company. A collective gasp rippled through the room, followed by murmurs and surprised glances exchanged among the employees. Heather's smug smile froze into one of disbelief, her eyes grew wide, and she took a half-step back as if struck by a sudden, unexpected blow. Emma went on, folding her arms gently across her chest. I prefer to bring my lunch from home because I find it helps me focus better during the day. It's healthier, more thoughtful. It's a small discipline I keep not because I need to prove anything, but because it keeps me connected to my routine, to my values. Her gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of those who had just moments ago been smirking or judging her. The shift was palpable. The atmosphere, heavy with derision just seconds before, softened. Employees exchanged looks of surprise mixed with respect, some even nodding quietly. A few whispered remarks of admiration floated around, the kind that acknowledged Emma's unexpected humility and authority rather than humor at her expense. Heather's face flushed, her confidence punctured. She opened her mouth to retort but found no words strong enough to regain the upper hand. Instead, her gaze flickered to the floor, and she straightened her posture, suddenly uncomfortable in the spotlight. A senior team member, seated nearby, spoke up hesitantly. "I didn't know, Emma. I mean, we all see you moving through the offices and meetings, but I never realized you were the CEO." "That's impressive." Others murmured agreement. Emma offered a small, warm smile. "I don't often make myself visible like this. My role sometimes keeps me in the background, especially since I've been traveling a lot lately with our new projects and volunteer work outside the company." She paused thoughtfully. "But I wanted to share this time with you all, to remind everyone, even myself, that leadership isn't about appearances or luxury. It's about purpose, integrity, and connection." Her words were sincere, unpretentious, striking a chord with those listening. Some employees leaned forward, intrigued by the woman who had been quietly sitting amongst them, now revealing a side none of them had anticipated. Heather shifted uneasily, her previous dominance eroding. A few moments earlier, she had been so sure of her power; now, it had been replaced with quiet humiliation. Whispers began to rise, not in mockery but in a slow acknowledgement of Emma's revelation and the strength it represented. An employee near the back chuckled softly, shaking their head in disbelief. "I guess we all learned something today." Emma's calm demeanor didn't waver as she continued. "Bringing lunch from home isn't about frugality or trying to appear different. It's about choosing how to live intentionally, even when life gets complicated. And it's a way for me to stay grounded amid all the responsibilities I carry." She glanced toward Heather, her tone gentle but firm. "I hope this clears up any misconceptions, and perhaps encourages us all to look beyond surface appearances before drawing conclusions." The room seemed to absorb her message. Heather's lips pressed into a thin line, unwilling to respond verbally. She gathered her papers and muttered an excuse, retreating quietly from the area, the color draining from her face. Employees exchanged smiles, nodding to Emma in newfound respect. Conversation sparked up again, this time infused with a different energy, one of inclusion and admiration rather than judgment. Emma settled back into her seat, opening her humble lunch container with a serene air. The contrast between her simple meal and the luxurious surroundings seemed no longer significant; instead, it highlighted the strength in authenticity and quiet confidence. A few people approached her, eager to engage. One asked about her volunteer work, another inquired about the projects she had been traveling for. The barrier that had once separated Emma from her colleagues melted away, replaced by connections born of mutual respect and understanding. Heather lingered at the edge of the cafeteria briefly, casting hesitant glances back, her earlier bravado replaced by reflection. The encounter had shifted the dynamics in the room, and even she could sense that her role as judge had been overturned by Emma's quiet but powerful revelation. The moment, once charged with tension and potential defeat, had transformed into one of triumph, not through confrontation but through courage rooted in truth and vulnerability. What started as quiet humiliation had evolved into a lesson about the value of seeing people wholly, beyond assumptions and appearances. Emma's poised response showed that true strength lies not in status or outward appearance but in how one carries oneself and treats others. As the buzz of conversations resumed, light-hearted now with laughter and gentle teasing, Emma felt a renewed sense of belonging. The cafeteria, once a place where she had felt exposed and judged, had become a space for connection and understanding. And with that, the invisible barrier between CEO and employee had blurred, replaced by mutual recognition of shared humanity and respect. Heather's silent exit marked the close of her reign over this moment, her embarrassment a reminder to think twice before casting stones. Emma's quiet dignity had won the day, leaving behind a cafeteria full of changed minds and inspired hearts. After the cafeteria's hum of renewed conversation settled into a warm murmur, Emma remained seated, the simple meal before her untouched for a moment. The room had acknowledged her revelation with surprise and respect, but the quiet satisfaction she felt came from somewhere deeper, something anchored in her journey long before she stepped into that office building. Her colleagues had seen the CEO today, a woman revealing a side of herself that defied expectations, but few knew the full story behind the name Emma Carter and the person who carried it. From early on, Emma's life had been marked by determination and a grounded humility unusual for someone at the helm of a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Raised in a small, unassuming town in the Midwest, her childhood had been humble. Her parents taught her the value of hard work, resilience, and integrity, lessons that shaped her approach to both life and leadership. She remembered days when her mother packed lunches for their family, simple sandwiches, fresh fruit, homemade cookies, and how those gestures were a tangible expression of care and steadiness amid life's uncertainties. That tradition had remained with Emma, a conscious choice to stay connected to her roots no matter where life took her. Her ascent to CEO was not a straightforward path. Years of long hours, relentless pursuit of knowledge, and willingness to take risks had led her into the fast-paced corporate world. But Emma never lost sight of the values instilled in her: authenticity, kindness, and the belief that genuine leadership was about service, not status. Dressing simply, avoiding the flashy trappings often expected of executives, was an act of intentionality. She wanted to focus on substance over style, to be judged not by appearances but by the impact of her work and the relationships she built. Her schedule reflected this dedication. Extensive business trips, negotiating deals across continents, all balanced with volunteer work on weekends, Emma was deeply committed to causes supporting education and women's empowerment. Her travels often left her weary and in need of something familiar and grounding, like a homemade meal amid unfamiliar environments. Tonight, as she prepared to leave the office, Emma's thoughts drifted to what lay behind the mask of the diligent CEO. She thought of the quiet mornings spent in her modest apartment, making lunches with care before a day of high-stakes meetings. The modest container she carried was more than a meal, it was a reminder of who she was and the life she chose to lead. As she looked around the cafeteria now transformed by understanding, the connections she felt with her coworkers were more genuine. She sensed openness, a tentative step toward a culture of inclusion she had long hoped to cultivate within the company. Emma envisioned a future where people could bring their whole selves to work without fear of judgment, a place where diversity extended beyond background and identity to include differences in lifestyle and choices. She realized that today's incident could become a catalyst for change, an opportunity to break down unspoken barriers and social hierarchies that too often defined office life. Her mind lingered on Heather, the head of HR whose harsh words had exposed a deep misunderstanding about appearance and belonging. Emma hoped Heather would reflect on this experience, perhaps reevaluate her assumptions and grow from the encounter. While Emma valued humility, she also knew the importance of affirming one's worth and demanding respect. She was determined to show that leadership was about empathy and understanding, not power plays or exclusion. In this moment, Emma felt a renewed commitment to her mission, both for the company and herself. She would strive to foster an environment where authenticity thrived, where people felt seen and valued for all aspects of who they were. Gathering her lunch, Emma stood, ready to face the rest of the day and the challenges ahead with the quiet confidence born of knowing she was true to herself. As she moved through the office, colleagues offered warm smiles and nods of acknowledgement. It was a subtle shift, but one that promised a new dynamic, one built on respect and openness instead of judgment. Her simple lunchbox was no longer something to hide or be ashamed of, it was a symbol of resilience and choice, emblematic of a leader who walked the talk. Later, reflecting on the day's events, Emma considered how appearances often masked complex truths. The lessons she had imparted were also lessons for herself, a reminder to see beyond first impressions and embrace the multifaceted nature of people around her. She understood now that leadership was as much about vulnerability as strength, about sharing one's story to inspire others and foster genuine connection. Emma thought of the journey ahead, one filled with opportunities to rewrite the company culture and create a workplace where kindness and authenticity were the norm rather than exceptions. As she prepared to leave, a sense of peace settled over her. The simple act of bringing lunch from home had sparked a bigger conversation, one that could ripple through the organization and beyond. This was more than a meal, it was a statement, a step toward a more compassionate, inclusive world. She smiled softly, ready to embrace the future with open arms and a steadfast heart. The days following the cafeteria incident unfolded with an unexpected swiftness. The company's leadership team convened shortly after learning of the incident, taking Heather's behavior under serious consideration. Word reached Emma that Heather was to meet with senior executives to discuss the matter. Her unprofessional conduct and the negative impact it had on workplace morale could no longer be overlooked. Heather, once brimming with confidence, faced the consequences with a rare humility. She issued a formal apology to Emma, expressing regret for her actions and the embarrassment she had caused. In a private conversation, Heather admitted that she had underestimated Emma, judging superficially without knowing the person behind the lunch container. "I was wrong," Heather confessed quietly one afternoon in Emma's office. "I let my assumptions cloud my judgment, and for that, I'm sorry. I want to make amends, not just with you but with the whole company." Emma listened, appreciating the sincerity in her voice. She recognized that growth often comes with discomfort and believed this moment could be a turning point, not just for Heather but for the broader company culture. With Heather's apology accepted, Emma proposed a new initiative to foster empathy and inclusion, a recurring, community lunch event where staff could bring homemade meals to share stories about themselves, their cultures, or their values. The aim was to break down social barriers and nurture appreciation for diverse life experiences. The first event was met with enthusiasm. Employees brought dishes from home, from elaborate family recipes to healthy salads and comfort foods. The room buzzed with laughter and conversation that felt genuine, different from the usual office small talk. Emma herself participated, sharing stories of her childhood lunches and why she embraced simplicity. The gesture transformed the company atmosphere. People who had once stood apart began to mingle and connect. Barriers erected by status and assumptions started to crumble. The cafeteria became a place of warmth and acceptance, not judgment. Heather took the initiative seriously, contributing ideas and volunteering to help organize the events. Her own transformation was noticeable, where once she had wielded judgment, she now championed openness and kindness. She became an advocate for creating a workplace where everyone could feel valued and respected. Emma's leadership was vindicated, not just in word but through action. Her humility, willingness to reveal vulnerability, and dedication to authentic connection inspired many. She showed the power of standing firm in one's truth, even when faced with doubt or ridicule. As the months passed, the company thrived, not only financially but culturally. Employee satisfaction rose, and many remarked on the positive shift. Stories like Emma's encouraged others to share their own, building a mosaic of experiences that enriched the workplace. One afternoon, after a particularly vibrant community lunch, a group of employees gathered around Emma's desk, thanking her for creating a space where they felt seen and heard. "You reminded us that leadership isn't about appearances," one said. "It's about heart." Another nodded, and that sometimes, a simple lunch can tell a story far bigger than we imagine. Emma smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She knew the journey of change was ongoing, but moments like this made it worthwhile. Before leaving that day, Emma paused near the door to see Heather heading into the elevator. Their eyes met, and Heather gave a genuine smile, a silent acknowledgement of shared growth. Later, Emma prepared a message for the company's newsletter, encouraging openness and respect. She ended her note with a question for everyone to consider. Have you ever been judged unfairly for something simple or different? How did you stand your ground or handle it? Her message resonated widely, sparking conversations across teams and sparking new initiatives focused on inclusivity. As the story of Emma's lunch and the transformation it sparked spread, employees and viewers alike found inspiration in her example. The tale wasn't just about a CEO or a meal, it was about the courage to be oneself, the impact of kindness, and the strength found in authenticity. To viewers reading this story, have you ever experienced judgment for something as simple as a choice or appearance? How did you respond when faced with unfair scrutiny? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story matters. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more heartfelt stories about everyday courage and resilience. See you in our next story.